To start off the night, we're gonna learn a little bit more about Shannon Ratcliffe, our moderator this evening, and I have to read off of this, but I'm gonna make some edits. Shannon's a triple threat. She is the owner of Curated Connections. She's our programs chair for the NKVA SoCal, and the designer services specialist for Middleby Residential. She brings over 25 years in marketing, events, publishing, sales, moderating panels, and loving this industry. So I want to pass it off to Shannon.
So that was a little bit about me, and now I have some really interesting people next to me. I'm extraordinarily honored to be moderating a panel with such distinguished guests. I do have some bios to read, and I'm going to take the time to read these because these people are pretty exceptional sitting next to me. So, without further ado, Jay, I'm going to start with you if you wouldn't mind raising your hand. Perfect. So this is Jay Robinson. She is our Senior Channel Marketing Manager. With over 25 years of experience in marketing and product development in the US, Asia, Europe, and Israel, Jay leads the Brizo brand channel marketing strategies, including marketing and event efforts. Jay is responsible for Brizo's national sponsorship of St. Jude's Research Hospital Dream Home Giveaway Program, and she was selected to serve on the advisory board of the Indiana Design Center in Carmel, Indiana. She is fluent in French, and Jay lived in Paris for 2 years. We'll be having her use a little bit of French in her language today. It's a little bit of love. So next up is Chris Wilson.
Hello, everyone.
So Chris didn't even know that I had this fancy bio for him. So Chris's bio tells us that he's a long-standing Brizo team member whose experience begins with the launch of Beliza and goes to include Lavore, Kinsu, Invari, and Frank Lloyd Wright bath collections. Did I butcher any of those names, or did I do okay?
You did fine, yeah.
Oh, okay, good. With extensive product development and experience, a background in consumer products, and a passion for design, Chris is responsible for Brizo kitchen portfolio, along with exploring new opportunities in kitchen bath adjacencies. Secret stuff. I like secret stuff. Chris enjoys traveling with his wife and 2 kids in pursuit of adding to his interesting collection of assorted collectibles. Fabulous. I love it. All right, next up is Simon. Simon Elzer is our industrial designer. Simon's part of the product team, and as an industrial designer, he's responsible for contributing designs to all the channels and product categories. Simon's responsible for designing many concepts across all channels, notably for the Delta Trade, Monrovia Kitchen, and Brizo Frank Lloyd Wright handle expansion. Simon earned both a Bachelor in Science in Business Selling and Sales Management, as well as a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Industrial Design from Purdue University. Very fancy. Next up is our celebrity interior designer, Miss Nikki Chu. So most of you probably know Nikki as a celebrity interior designer. She's also an author, a known trendsetter with 20 years of experience, an accomplished and vast range of interior projects, as well as the design collaborations with some of the most accredited names in the industry. She's designed Hollywood projects for such elites as Gabrielle Union, Nick Cannon, Tyra Banks, and many more. During her career, she's been awarded several honors for her outstanding accomplishments, and this is a very long list, but it's Women of Style, BID Top 20 Interior Designers, Best of Show, Design Nomination for Product Designer, and recognized for Best Home Textile Line. Nikki, it's a pleasure. Next we have Elle Millard, who is our industry influencer and interior designer, and this woman oozes great style. So here, interior designer and expert Elle she's an influencer representing the National Kitchen and Bath Association, so she's a fellow NKBA member, and promoting the highest standards of kitchen and bath design and remodeling across the country and internationally. A trend forecasting and event programming professional, Elle participates in think tank group discussions for new product and trade show developments across various platforms. Today, Elle also facilitates training discussions and interactive learning experiences with residential build experts as the corporate learning manager at Delta Faucet Company. And last but definitely not least is Miss Annette Reeves. My favorite bio of the day that I have to read was when I texted Miss Annette today at 2:02 and said, Annette, what's your bio? Can you give me a quick bio? Now you have to know that Annette and I have known each other for a better part of 10 years now. And so getting a bio was kind of fun, and this is what I received. Annette loves selling refrigerators and toilets. She owns more horses, dogs, and chickens than she has children. She prefers animals over people. I think most of us probably do. And she's an avid wine connoisseur. But let's not, as much as I joke around, for those of you who don't know Annette in the Southern California market, it's pretty difficult for you not to know who Annette is. She is a pillar within Perch. She is one of the Perch team members. She's been designing in kitchens and baths, and she really does take a consultative approach at every stage of the building process. She's an expert in her field, and Annette has garnered a reputation of being she is the great go-to resource for everything kitchen and bath design. So without further ado, we have a very esteemed panel. I've got some fantastic questions for us. And tonight is, as a reminder for all of those who registered, tonight is how fashion, architecture, and world trends influence the kitchen and bath design. So, Jay, your question number one. You ready? Okay. So you've been at Brizo for 14 years. You've experienced the growth of the brand from almost the beginning to where it is now. Can you tell us a bit about what influences have impacted the Brizo brand?
Sure. So the Brizo brand was actually started in 2004, and we did a lot of research and homework before we started the brand to really figure out what was that niche in decorative plumbing that we could fill. And we just kept coming back to this idea of fashion. And when we looked at the research, all the data, and saw that consumers who follow fashion designers and trends tend to decorate their homes more often, and they also spend more money when they do. So that was good. And then we're like ching ching. So that's one thing that's good. And also interior designers tend to follow fashion designers. And as you guys know, what you see coming down the runway very quickly transcends into the interior design world. So it just made sense. And when you think back almost 20 years ago, believe it or not, 2004, that really wasn't being filled in the decorative plumbing industry in the market. So we decided to go into the luxury home market as fashion for the home. So fashion has really been that inspiration and the driving force, kind of the ethos behind Brizo from the very beginning, because we've always looked at it as it's not really about the clothes that you wear. Fashion is really about showcasing your entire sense of personal style and your lifestyle. So one of the things Anna Wintour says is that fashion is not in a vacuum. It's a huge business that employs millions of people, and it's billions of dollars. So it's not in a vacuum. It's not just about clothes, and that's really where the whole Brizo brand came from, and where we still are today, even though it's evolved a little bit as we've gone along.
Oh, that's fabulous. So now that we know that fashion is definitely driving those influences, Chris, this question is for you. So you're responsible for the Brizo kitchen portfolio and previously the Brizo bath portfolio. How does Brizo decide which trends make sense and the influence for the product development? How do you come up with which trends decide?
How do we figure that out?
Yeah.
It's not easy.
I bet.
The trends are interesting, and I think I'll say I'm oddly conflicted about them because, and I think that Simon and Elle are going to talk a little bit from their perspective how trends come into the building and how they interpret that. My role is a little bit different. So when we're talking about fashion, I'm a little bit of a gatekeeper, and what it means is what I'm trying to do is prevent things that we would maybe call fast fashion from coming into the line. We're looking for things that have some staying power. I'll give just a maybe perhaps an odd example of that. But here's what happens every time I get ready to go and pack to come out to an event like this. I look through my clothes and I'm like, okay, so that doesn't fit, so we're not gonna wear that, or I don't like this, or I don't like that. But inevitably I'm like, okay, what jeans am I gonna wear, right? And every time I feel like I've gotten like a really nice assortment of jeans that I feel good with, I'm like, well, no, those are no longer in style, or I don't like the wash. Jeans are kind of, I think, like a hallmark of fast fashion. And as I think back to my own childhood, and this will date me a little bit, there are going to be some of you who have absolutely no idea what these words mean. I was a tough skins kid when I grew up. It's terrible, and I had terrible PST, but when I graduated up to Levi's, right, I was like, oh, this is really great. I remember my mom, we went to Mervyn's, right, which is no longer around, but was a great chain, and then they had black jeans too, and I'm like, what? And it was so fantastic.
You're still wearing it?
Absolutely. Oh, can you imagine if they'd still fit? And another thing a lot of you folks won't know was that jeans didn't actually come in the size that you wore. You put them and washed them, and then they would shrink, and you prayed that they were still going to fit after that time. But when you think about these influences that are moving, right? So you went from tough skins with a little bit of a flare, and then your cuffs came up, and then we pegged them, and then they went boot cut, and then they got really low, and that was a terrible time. But yes, let's not talk about that. That was bad, right? Like, can't bend over. But then they were bedazzled, and there was these thick things. But like, there's an impermanence to some of the things that we're bringing into our lives, and that's intentional, right? And even when we think about pieces coming into the home, there are things that are intended to last for a short season, and there are things that are intended to last for a long time. And when it comes to faucets specifically, we want somebody to bring that piece in and have it in their home for a minimum of 7 years. This is what research tells us, that people are going to typically have a faucet in their house for about 7.5 years. There are also people who are really going to fall in love with it and have it in there for 15 or even for a lifetime. And we want to make sure that whatever trend we pick, whatever style that we're putting onto this frame, that people are going to be as happy with it at 3 years or 5 years or 7 years or 10 years, and they're not gonna walk into the kitchen space and think, wow, that looks dated, or I don't like that finish, or it just doesn't represent me anymore. So that's my job, wander about jeans, but also gatekeeper when it comes to fashion as it comes into the product category.
Well, I want to add one thing too, because I feel very strongly that one thing that really defines true luxury is this idea of timelessness. So that, I think that's important too when we're looking at our portfolio and what we're trying to develop and what we stand for as a brand. Really having that sense of timelessness is really important.
That's I think the absolute, that's like the pinnacle is what we're trying to accomplish, right? To bring something in that, and timeless is an interesting word. I had a conversation with an architect designer once, and he said, wasn't timeless just a synonym for boring? And I'm like, what, no. And I understand where he was coming from, right? But I think he was also wrong, because timeless has this enduring quality that means that it lasts because it's appropriate and it's right. It's not because it's boring or stale or outdated.
So this next question is perfectly suited to talking about how we're trying to come up with timelessness. So Nikki, this question is directed towards you. As a designer and a trendsetter, you see a lot of different design that's happening out there in different kitchen products especially. What outside influences are defining design styles in the home today, outside of the fact that we know we're trying to create timeless pieces?
Well, I think what's happening right now is something we all went through, which is COVID. And that changed the perspective of how we live, where we live, and what the floor plan says for the home. Just because it says it's the dining room or it's the traditional living room, I have a concept that I call F the floor plan, and really use these spaces as you need them. I've done everything from a traditional dining room to create a WeWork space for a whole family. Kitchens are now becoming the center point of the home, and they need to feel more than just a kitchen. And how do you do that? How do you make a kitchen less traditional, more fashionable, more cool, the place that you hang out? So that's really what's really driving a lot of the things that are happening in design today, is really how we live.
Thank you. So Annette, we're talking about how people live. In Southern California, I think we all would agree, life changed a lot during the big C word. And so you deal with builders, architects, designers all the time. Are there any special trends that you're seeing that have really dictated and really changed in Southern California?
Not necessarily just in Southern California, but I would say that mixing metals, mixing colors, being completely okay with split finishes and adding in different marbles or wood and things like that allows people to create and customize their own fixture. And that's I think probably the answer to my question in a nutshell, is people want timelessness. They want something they're going to use for a long time, but they also want it to be unique to them, and they don't want to see it everywhere. And so just to be able to, do a black faucet with a white Calcutta marble inset makes it their faucet. And when we talk about COVID and how we're living in our homes differently and really loving our homes, we're loving our spaces, because we have PTSD that this might happen again, and we might be stuck at home with our chickens and our dogs and our horses and our kids for a long time. I really want to go to that bathroom and love that faucet. So I think that's what's happened, is that the industry has come alive. They've figured that out. Brizo, 100% a testament to that, where you can have different handles and you can have different colors. And you can really make it your collection and your bathroom.
Can I, is that okay?
Yeah, please.
Sorry. I think, and thank you so much, those were wonderful words. I think sometimes people are looking for permission too. For some of us, some of these things are so ingrained. Mixing metals, it's so interesting. Like my mom thinks it's scandalous. She would never mix her silvers and gold, right? Oh, it's so gold, right? But even something simple, like, traditionally you might not mix your blacks and your blues together. And it's like, whenever I'll walk through and people are like, what are you doing? I'll be like, take it up with Tom Ford. He said it was okay, right? But I think that they look to folks like us, to you, to give them permission to do those things that are so special.
I want to add to that, because a lot of my clients ask me, how do you mix metals? All of the products in the kitchen are stainless. It seems very boldly stainless. How do you introduce brass or gold to that? And mixing metal is a formula, in my opinion. Equally as much stainless as you have, you need to infuse that beautiful brass color. And the Jen Air collection actually does that really well. The Rise collection, Design Expression, does a beautiful job at creating a mixed metal look. And they're one of the first appliance companies that I've ever seen really infuse that. So adding in a nice gold faucet or a chandelier that's gold, it just makes it so much easier at this point.
I love those answers. So we've all been given permission tonight. We can mix metals. Says the style influencers and trendsetters next to us. We can say they said it so. So Simon, okay, we're inquiring minds. You're an industrial designer. I'm curious, does anyone in this audience know what an industrial designer is? Okay, so for all of you, I've seen one hand, just so you know. So Simon, enlighten us, tell us, what does it mean to be an industrial designer?
Well, I don't design warehouses. I get that a lot. But whenever I'm asked that question, I like to reference this quote from a fellow industrial designer, Michael DeTullo. And he says, if you think about what an architect does for buildings, what a fashion designer does for apparel, we pretty much do everything in between. So from your car to the chairs that we're sitting on, to your phone, to the pen that you're using to take notes, everything is in between is what we do. So something in your life, every day you touch, has been done by an industrial designer. And it's one of my favorite things about being an industrial designer is the umbrella is huge. I mean, there's graphic design, interior design, all these influences that take into account to be an industrial designer. And that's really what I love about it.
So I'm curious, especially when it comes to Delta, which you're closely working with. Tell me, how are you gathering your inspirations?
So we do, there's a picture there. I know this is the rough part of the job, but my boss tries to send all 9 of us out of the country a couple times a year. Earlier in the month, October 6th, I think, I went for 9 days to Paris and just gathered as much inspiration as I could. I took 1,348 pictures, and I'm currently still trying to compile all of that and get all the data from that. But a funny story about that is I went with a coworker, and we were in the Louvre, and we were at the Mona Lisa, and he and I were taking pictures of the doorknobs and the hinges. It's like the Mona Lisa is right there. So you get inspiration from so many different things, whether it's a painting or a door hinge or anything along those lines. So inspiration is everywhere.
So, Simon, this is a question that comes back to you. How often do you see trends change, and how does that help guide you and your team to developing these products?
So trends change all the time, as I'm sure all of you know, weekly sometimes. But we actually, Delta Faucet Company, we partner with an organization called Sphere, and they're a trend agency, and we utilize the reports that they give us biannually, and then they give us updates about quarterly on those trends. And we have a CMF designer on our team, an expert in the field, color, material, and finish. Thanks.
Thank you.
And she's an expert in what she does, so she gathers that data from Sphere. It's like a 145-page report, and she kind of culls it down, spark notes it for the design team into 4 major trends. And this year, right behind me, we have, we see the future being modern, tranquil, eclectic earth, casual cottage, and traditional era. In all of these trends, they have nature-inspired aspects to them, and they're all, as Nikki and everyone on this panel said, is COVID. A lot softer, a lot more, cozier, serene, Japandese, Scandinavese styles. And as you can see up there, all the hushed metals, just very, very calm and serene, because people are working from home a lot more now than they ever were. They want to be comfortable. They want to be in a place where they want to work. So that's a big influence with trends, and we gather all that information all the time. We use it every single day. And then what's also nice is I'm on a team of a lot of diverse people with different backgrounds, different experiences, and they interpret all these trends a little bit differently. So we then put all that information into basically a fishbowl, I'd say, and it can be a little bit different than what you see behind me, but we can interpret it different and then come up with something so much even better or new that was not even inspired by the trends. So it's, again, everywhere inspiration.
So once it the inspiration is in your department, and then Chris, I believe it goes to your team, right? So once it goes to your team, can you tell us a little bit about that process, what that process is like? How do you work with that industrial team to actually give us these gorgeous design and distinctive products?
Yeah, the projects, it's kind of like a boomerang project. So we will, we'll kick these off, and we do that really by listening to the input that all of you bring to us. So before any project gets started, we just go out and we start thinking about what is it that we're looking to accomplish, and we look and we see what things are we starting to notice. Say, for example, that I'm on a panel and most of the members are wearing pointy shoes, and Simon and I are in some type of sneaker. But we look for little things like that, and this is the Kintsu collection. Hopefully everyone's at least somewhat familiar with that. this started out, and I feel terrible even saying this, as just a plain transitional project exploration back in the days that we just called stuff transitional, which we don't do anymore. It's obviously much more complex than that. But the heart of that was about what if we could interact with a product in a non-traditional way. And that led us to what if we could create something that we could break and then fix? What if we could break things visually and then put them back together? And it just so happened that we stumbled upon the concept of what they call Japan deer, yeah. But we didn't just get there right off the bat. So over on the left-hand side of the screen, you're gonna see some very early concepts that were a bit chaotic. I couldn't quite figure out what exactly it was that the design team was trying to tell me through that. I was like, why is there that huge kind of circular little giblet down there at the bottom? But we work and we refine and we come back to, again, people like you, and we say, we don't think this is right. Tell us what you think, and you can
Chris
see.
is our biggest critic too.
Simon and I were joking. I was like, when you guys say that you have really thick skin, I'm like, I'm not sure that's terribly true, but that might actually be a cell phone. So I will work to do better. But you can see the strides that it took to go from that little bit of a messed up design into something that was really so much more streamlined and simple. And then from there, we looked at what can we do to make those special things, to bring in those details. There's this little fun saying in healthcare that you can sit down with somebody for an appointment and you're not going to get to anything of any merit until they go to leave. And it's that moment that they're heading out the door that they're actually going to tell you the thing that you really need to know. Hey, I'm having this issue. And it's almost the same when we're designing these faucets. And all of you are wonderful people, and we love to hear how amazing we are. But we also like to hear how things aren't amazing and where we can make improvements. And the mother of pearl specifically for the handle, there was a wonderful woman from Texas. She'd been doing some research, and she'd been so quiet. And as she was about to head out the door, she turned back and she said, if y'all only add mother of pearl, I just think it'd be divine. Done.
Done and done.
And that's how we work together, with the industrial design, with all of you, to really make sure, again, that we have those statement pieces, that timeless, that classicness, these things that can hopefully be workhorses for you, that people are going to love to bring into their home. And again, just, hopefully be happy 5, 10, 15 years later.
How long does that process usually take?
It's a long time. So Kintsu was a great example. So that one was super fast. It took us about 3 years. The Frank Lloyd Wright collection, something like 15. It took us about 15 years to get that one right. And 5 of that was actually development time. So trying to figure out how to make that water flow, how to make it fall, how to put those true pieces of wood on the top, how to engineer that thing. So that was a little bit long. We try and crank things out a little bit faster than that. So generally we think, though, if we're doing things in 3 to 5 years, we're doing pretty well.
So to all of those homeowners who wanted to get into their house after only just a year, tell them, I'm sorry, product development takes 3 to 5 years. We've got plenty of time. We're ahead of schedule. I'm sure they'll appreciate that. All right, well, let's bring it back. And so now we're going to bring it to Nikki is a celebrity designer. And Nikki, I have to ask. So you have an incredible lineup of clients. We are inquiring minds. You do not have to state names. We do not want you to. But okay, we know you have pretty cool clients. Can you share with us a little bit about what you're seeing in those client homes, maybe how you're integrating smoke and brass into this?
Well, first of all, did you all see the smoke and brass range at the front of this showroom? Fantastic. As soon as I walked in, I was talking to all the Gen Air women, and I couldn't even pay attention to them. I was like, wait a minute, I'm filming the range, I'm taking pictures. I mean, what a statement piece. And what's really cool about it, and this is what I appreciate about the Gen Air brand, if you look on the handle on the far right corner, it says 1 out of 50. only 50 have been made, and you actually get that etched on the handle of the piece. I mean, that's pretty much a statement if in the appliance world. But for my celebrity clients, I'm finding a lot of them are looking for that butler's pantry, that butler's kitchen where everything is hidden, where you actually cook, where you have all your food, and everything you do is behind that wall, allowing a range like the smoke and brass to be the hero of the kitchen. So between the range, a beautiful hooded vent, kitchens are now becoming like this beautiful centerpiece of a home. Everyone always gathers there anyway, it's the heart of the home, but how people are using the kitchens now has completely changed. I'm creating booths, like restaurant-style booth seating. I'm taking away all those traditional chairs and allowing the appliances to really kind of create that statement. Jenner actually created what they call cuts panels, and I always say that drapery is like the eyebrows to a home. Without them, something's just missing. So the cuts panels, in my opinion, really soften up a kitchen. They're leather panels that go over the fridge and really create a really new dynamic for what a kitchen looks like. So you get that beautiful range, you get all of the beautiful wood, and then it softens up that fridge for you. So it's just a new way of looking at kitchens to be a lot more stylish than we're typically seeing.
I love that, but that brings some new challenges. So Miss Annette, with everybody specifying kitchen and bath, and you being the specialist, that has to be changing the way designers specify, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah. I think right now, I've been at Perch for 10 years, and I think this is one of the most exhilarating times that I have been here working, because I really feel like we are designers are pushing themselves to a extreme level. They're really taking just faucets that, we did chrome, and, the big decision was a cross handle versus a lever, in a meeting, like, oh my God, I'm really gonna step out on the edge and do a cross handle. And now we're talking about like satin bronze versus gunmetal, and are we gonna put mother of pearl in there? And so my point is that there are so many choices today, and that is so exciting for the designer, but really exciting for the homeowner. You have ranges that have this amazing coloration to them. When Jenner came out with their new range that had knurling on it, designers were like, oh my God, my mind is blown. There's like knurling. What is knurling? And then it started to come out in faucets, and now it's really like a cool trend, but I think a long time trend, not just it's gonna be here today and gone tomorrow. So, Perch, we have a pretty amazing training program for new designers that come in, or new trainees, and I take on a few occasionally, and I tell them, like, if you're quoting chrome and you're showing designers chrome on a regular basis, you suck. You suck at your job. We need to be helping these designers give homeowners like the latest and greatest. We want this project to be different from that project, because the last thing we would want to do is tell you to do that for the same thing and not up your game, right? Like up your design photos and your clients and your projects at the end of the day. And we bring that to you because we should know what is latest and greatest and what is cutting edge in the industry. And we have amazing manufacturers to bring that to. So it's, like I said, it's exhilarating right now.
I love that. So that brings me to a question, because we're talking about great new products. Let's talk a little bit, Jay, if you would, about the Jason Wu Brizo collection, because that really had a huge influence on it. Seemed like it was the start of really great trends coming down the pipe.
Sure. We began sponsoring Jason Wu actually because being fashion for the home, we really wanted to have some legitimacy in that fashion world. So we began sponsoring Jason in 2006, and he was just out of design school at the time and really an unknown, to be honest. But we just knew that his aesthetic, his style, which if you're familiar with Jason and his work, he just has a really amazing way of taking designs, and they're kind of that classic and timeless yet modern with exquisite details. And that's really what we were striving to be as a brand as well. So it was kind of a good fit, a good marriage from that standpoint. But also being able to work with him and then the industrial design team, the product team, the brand and marketing teams to be able to work with him also helped us really kind of look at fashion, look at the industry differently. So one of the things is we don't really look at other competitors when we're designing products or even our marketing materials and advertising campaigns. It's just not something that we do with Brizo. We look more into the fashion world. And having that connection with Jason helps us do that. So the next natural step was really to do a product collaboration with him. And this was back in 2010, 11, I think we were working with him, and he kept saying, I want the little black dress of faucets. I want it to be black. And we're like, it's metal, we do like chrome or brass or whatever. And he would not get off of that point. He said, I want the little black dress of faucets. So we finally said, okay, why not? Whatever he wants. Probably won't sell, but we'll try it. So the first couple of years we were kind of right. It was a little early, but then fast forward, and as you guys know, matte black is just such a staple in home finishings now in all industries across the board. So I always like to say one of the great things about working directly with a fashion designer is not that you're kind of ahead of the curve or ahead of trends. You actually have the opportunity to create the trends. And that's one of the great things that I think Jason brings to the party for us. So then fast forward again several years, and just a couple of years ago we decided to do a kitchen collection, which he was very passionate about because he is an avid cook. And he was really excited, and we assumed incorrectly that he would want to do a black faucet in the kitchen, and he's like, no, I want to do white. We're like, okay. So we did the white faucet, and you guys are designers, so you have looked at paint swatches a time or two. Tell me, somebody, how many shades of white are out there in the world? 9,622, I think.
That's exact.
Yeah.
Pretty much exactly.
So trying to get the exact repeatable process in a matte white faucet that Jason liked and wanted was a challenge, but we got there. So it's been great. That faucet's been out for a little over a year now, I think. 2 years, year or two. But yeah, so the product collaboration with Jason has been fantastic, but he has allowed us to really, I think, be at the forefront.
Does anybody know why on the Jason Wu, the matte white in the kitchen, we have polished nickel as one of the accent colors? Anybody heard that? So just to give you just a little morsel, a soupçon. So Jason uses a very specific form when he creates his dress, and the bodice is a matte white, but up around the neckline it's actually done in polished nickel. So the faucet is really the encapsulation of his dress form, drawn into another space within the home. So it was something that he was very adamant about, and I think something that was really beautiful and works wonderfully well together.
Very clever. Very clever. I love that.
I was talking with the team last night about tumbled metals, and I was really happy and reluctant to see lots of tumbled metal handles, and I'd love to see it in a faucet in the future, so I'm gonna try to push that when I get back home, but we'll see.
All right, we got to talk about fashion too, right?
Do it.
Anybody-
Do it. I'm going to walk and hand this microphone to these
Did
folks.
anybody see snippets from Rick Owens' runway show? Holy cow. Dude, just, it's amazing. Just amazing works of art. Now, my personal style tends to lean more towards a kind of a brutalist, a little bit more contemporary. And every time he puts on a show, I just think he's really outdone himself. Just phenomenal stuff. If you haven't seen it, take a look.
I'm going to get a little sappy and say that I'm just excited that we are all sitting here next to each other, enjoying this
Agreed.
event. I'm not in fear of everybody.
So now that I'm playing the Vanna White, I saw a hand over here.
I would love to hear your thoughts as the idea of kitchen and bath now completely harmonizes into outdoor spaces, and I love the floor plan because that's so true in so much of this. I would love to hear your thoughts on the future of trend in outdoor, and where finally with advance in technology and mixing metals and materials, there's less of a compromise on aesthetic and design than there would have been just 5 to 10 years ago. So love your thoughts on that. Thank you very much.
I'll just say, as an interior designer, because of COVID and effing the floor plan, every inch of your real estate is now being used. From the side yard, the backyard, the front yard, the patio, and how do you create these additional spaces by covering them, extending the kitchen to the outdoor. I think that that's been extremely exciting because there's so many products from what they develop to Jen Air to all of the appliance companies that allow you to bring that indoor to the outdoor and make it a nice seamless transition. So I think as a designer, there's so many products now, from floor lamps that feel like you're inside, but you can really get that look outside.
Yeah, I agree that the idea of sensory design and how we're really thinking about the evolution of trends and how this is making an impact on our mental well-being is really driving the new initiative for outdoor spaces as well. And we just learned from Shelley Rosenberg a few weeks ago about we have more than 5 senses, which is a whole different topic. But really thinking about how sensory design plays into the aesthetics and wearability of outdoor living. And we have some finishes that are a PVD finish in how we develop our products. So there's a lot more to our product design that we have to think about for wearability or durability when we're developing products, but to think about the overall trend of how this impacts our well-being is very important for the overall senses as we are thinking about outdoor spaces and outdoor living. It's incredibly important for the overall design as you all are thinking about this, because it is more than just extending the outdoor space to increase your square footage. It has a lot more to do about the overall well-being with senses and durability, essentially. But we've given it a lot of thought. It has a lot more components involved with the durability side of it.
We do think about it. Actually, when it comes to secret projects, the outdoor space is one of mine.
It's not a
Don't
secret.
tell anybody,
It's a
it's not a
secret anymore.
No, but it's interesting when we think about use cases, right? And we think about, again, some of those constraints that we put on ourselves in the past. And sometimes we've been in a position where we relegate the outdoors to only certain types of activities. But we know that there's no reason for that rule to exist. There's no reason that we shouldn't have the same functionality, the ability to dispense beverages, even if it's just water while you're outside. There's nothing worse than you're outside and everybody's having a great time, and you have to break that environment, right? Because somebody has to go back inside to get something, another bottle of wine or water, and realistically that should never have to happen. We should have, this is what we're thinking about, right? But this is this is what we're starting to explore. Why can't we bring that same functionality, that's inside, and take it outside and let it be enduring and let it be beautiful. And let it not be the garden hose of 1970s, right? I mean, people can still drink out of a garden hose as long as it's an NSF one, but we want to elevate that space and bring the functionality.
And this is just reiterating, but one of the 4 major trends that we discover is eclectic earth, which is, textures, nature, tumbled metals. Sorry to keep talking about that. But it's at the forefront of that trend, and it's something that's going to happen, and it's something that I hope Delta Faucet and the team up here can achieve. So.
And I would totally agree. That palette that was up here on the screen with sort of these muted colors is so beautiful, and we're seeing it so much more in like cabinetry or countertops, and then we have these big windows that open out to the outdoor, so it really becomes one giant space, which is incredible. And then when we talk about fixtures, like I remember being in a meeting and we're deciding about the outdoor faucet and the indoor faucet, and the client's like, well, I have black windows, shouldn't I have like a black faucet? And I'm like, sure, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Let's totally go for that. Hence the Jason Wu became like an overnight, amazing faucet. But it's true. Like we're looking at the entire picture now, where we used to take design and look at it in little segments. Oh, I'm gonna do bath 1, I'm gonna do bath 2. But now we're looking at the whole picture together, looking at color, looking at faucets, and it's becoming this beautiful project all in one.
Well, on that note, I hope you've all had a really enjoyable time learning, listening, getting to feel that inspiration. There's food and drink inside, but before we all run inside and push each other over because the food is incredible, there's desserts and great cocktails. Let's do some announcements from our NKBA and ASID team. Before I get there, let's take a second to thank these panelists.